everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Last Sunday it was the International Women's Day, and last year for that occasion I started a little video series, and today I want to celebrate 1 year of that series. This is a video series that I have a lot of fun with, and so we will continue doing it. This is my Diversify Your Fantasy reading series. So the idea behind this is very basic. It is that, a lot of people tended to read a lot of fantasy books written by white male authors. And there's just so much more out there. And I think that fantasy reading is just so much more fun if you mix things up a little bit. You get authors of different ethnicities or different genders or, just like a different perspective on life. And I think that enriches the fantasy genre so much because you can imagine, a fantasy world or fantasy characters in a very different way depending on your life experiences. So the whole idea of this series is just to make reading fantasy even more fun. Now, I started this series last year with a video about fantasy books written by female authors, and we're going to do that again. So here are 8 fantastic fantasy books or series written by women. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that these are, not well-known authors or kind of like underdog authors, because the first one I wanted to mention is the queen of fantasy for me, Robin Hobb. And I haven't mentioned her in a video like this for a year. Like, I had a year worth of time and I did not mention her yet. So is that good or bad? You decide. However, I absolutely love the realm of the Elderlings, and I have currently finished the 3rd trilogy, and this year I want to read the 4th series in the realm of the Elderlings. So I'm going to start that soon, but we're starting out with the Farseer trilogy in this world, and the kind of main character of what we have seen so far is a boy called Fitz. He is the bastard son of the crown prince. However, when things come out about him, his father has to kind of resign from the throne, and so Fitz grows up at court. However, he is never really accepted or really treated as the son of a prince. Instead, he is the assassin's apprentice. And this may sound a little bit more exciting than it is, because in this book, what an assassin does is very much in the shadows, very much hidden, but also making very complicated decisions. So the Farseer trilogy sets up this whole world of the realm of the Elderlings that we then get to explore. And this is a series that is mostly focused on the characters, and this is where Robin Hobb's writing really shines. These people are all so deeply complicated, and she writes the perfect villains. You love to hate the villains in these series. She also wrote one of my favorite characters, the Fool. I will not go into it right now because I could talk about that for hours, but let's just say that the characters that are created by Robin Hobb in the realm of the Elderlings, they feel like actual people, and I care about them as if they were actual people. So don't come for me. Now, going from this massive series to maybe something more manageable, I have a couple of trilogies that I wanted to recommend to you. And the first one of that is the Rook and Rose trilogy. Now, this trilogy is written by 2 female authors. They have banded together under the name of M.A. Carrick, and I think they also start a new series this year, which I'm very, very excited. But in the Rook and Rose trilogy, we mainly follow a young woman who is a con woman, and she has this goal to infiltrate a noble family. However, she's after their money, and she doesn't know that they don't actually have any money anymore because they have had a streak of bad luck, and now they are very open to this new member who shows up and pretends to be one of their own, because they think, hey, maybe this random new woman could help us get some money and power back. Now, this is kind of what happens in the first half of the first book, but the plot gets so much bigger. This world has extremely fascinating magic. There are different magic systems that are interlinked as well. We do have kind of dream magic. We do have a magic that relates to something close to tarot cards, but we also have a magic system that is more scientific with these symbols and stuff, and it's like very geometric in a way. So yeah, a lot for everyone to enjoy. We also have the character of the Rook, who is kind of a Sorrow type of character. He is masked. So in the first book, we also have this question of who actually is the Rook. And it's just a fantastic fantasy series. If you like intricate character work and you like political machinations, you need to read this series. Changing pace a little bit, we are going to one of my favorite very gay series, and that is Simon Snow. Now, I would particularly recommend the first book, Carry On. This is technically a standalone, but then it had sequels. So you could read Carry On as a standalone, or you can read the whole trilogy, as I just recently did and uploaded a reading vlog for it. So there you can hear my full thoughts. In this one, in Carry On, this is basically a parody of Harry Potter. And we have this chosen one character of Simon Snow, and he is trying to save the world of mages. He has a roommate, Beth, who he thinks is a vampire, and he likes to stalk him. But eventually, there might be some feelings involved that maybe both of them never have actually acknowledged. And this is kind of their final year of school, where everything comes to the big finale, and the question is, can Simon save the world of mages? Now, there are very clear references to Harry Potter, but as I said, it's gay as hell, and I think it makes fun of Harry Potter and these ideas in a way, it just works for me. It works for me. I love Simon Snow. Then another series I have recently finished is the Hell's Library series. This is a series where we follow our main character, who is the librarian in Hell. And specifically, she presides over the library of the Unwritten. So that is where all the books go that have never been written down by their authors. And these books can be a little bit volatile, and they can come to life in the form of one of their characters. So the job of our main character is basically to make sure that none of these books spawn into a character and escape. At the beginning of the book, however, one of the books has escaped, and now she is trying to track it down. This series again gets so much bigger than you would anticipate from this little synopsis. This has a lot to do with heaven and hell. However, it is not restricted to Christianity. It explores different kind of like past lives, afterlives, kind of like heavens and hells and all of that. So I really, really love the creativity of the series as well. And again, the character work in this is fantastic. And it's also very queer. And the last one for the trilogies is one that I didn't absolutely love, but I would still recommend you give a try. And that is Black Sun. I think it's called the Between Earth and Sky series by Rebecca Roanhorse. And again, I have a complete reading vlog. Whenever I have something like that, I will link it in the description box so you can hear more of my thoughts. But in this one, we are looking at a world that is inspired by indigenous South American beliefs and myth and mythology. And we have a main character who has been told that he is a god reborn. And now is his hour, basically. He has to go to this big city to challenge kind of the theological ruler that presides there. And so the first book is about his journey, and he meets a woman who is also not quite human, and they make this journey together. We see a lot of like political stuff going on. In this one, I think it's much more about the world. The world is very rich. The world building is amazing. You have a lot of like really fascinating magic. It was lacking for me a little bit in the character department, unfortunately. And next up, I do have 3 standalone books that I wanted to recommend to you if you're not looking for a big series commitment right now. The first one is Erase the Sand by Sarah Beth Durst. Now, again, I do have a complete video where I talk about this book, which I will link down below. In Erase the Sand, we are following a main character who has been a rider in these magical races of this world. This is a desert fantasy. We do have monsters called Keyhawks, and this is a society that very strongly believes in rebirth, and the kind of being you're being reborn into depends on how well you have lived. So only the worst of the worst people get reborn as Keyhawks, and they will stay Keyhawks forever unless they win one of those races. And so each year one Keyhawk wins and it has the chance to be reborn as something else. And that is a huge deal. So we are following this main character who has participated and won in these races. And she is now a trainer. She is trying to protect her own daughter and provide for her. And also she is looking for a rider to train to eventually win the races. Now, it sounds very contained. It gets so much bigger than that, and in just a standalone. I think one thing that really amazed me about this book is how you can build up so much of the world, of the characters in a standalone book that isn't even that long. And if you then enjoy what you see, Sarah Beth Durst has written so many other fantasy series and standalones that there is a lot to choose from. I know I'm very late with the next one, but I only read this last year, and that's A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. This one is a little bit lighter on the fantasy, maybe if you're just trying to get into reading fantasy a little bit, and it does have some horror elements as well, as it is strongly inspired by Dracula. We are basically following Dracula's first bride as she writes kind of a letter to him talking about their life together and how she has experienced their life together. Now, this is also about abusive relationships. She never really had a lot of say in the life that they lived, and Dracula also kind of introduced new people into their relationship without her ever having a real say in it. So it deals with very heavy topics, but it's also not a very long book, and I was really impressed how much of a story, of thematic work, of character work was put into this quite short novel. And speaking of short, if you wanna ramp up your statistics for female authors immediately, I have a short story recommendation for you, and that is The Sixth Death of the Saint by Alix E. Harrow. This is a short story that I read right at the end of last year, and it completely blew me away. I gave this short story 5 stars so quickly it wasn't even funny. And the good news is that if you, like me, really enjoyed this short story, we do now have a full-length novel that is very much inspired by this original short story. And that is The Everlasting. Now, in The Sixth Death of the Saint, we do follow a young girl. She is an orphan, I believe. She's very sick, but then one day this god of war appears to her and basically tells her to go to her king and serve him. And we do follow her story as we do experience some time loops, and things get a little bit trippy and tricky for our main character. And this story is just absolutely fantastic. I highly recommend. And as I said, it's very short. So I think I read most of that while I was doing the dishes one night. So if you want more recommendations than these ones I have just given you, I will link all the videos in this series that I have done before, as well as I said, all of the vlogs where I talk deeper about these books. So you can pick and choose whatever you wanna watch next. I really hope you enjoyed this. If you do have some recommendations for me, which I would very much appreciate, then also leave them in the comments down below. But yeah, I hope we can take this little recommendation series into another year, and don't forget to leave a like. That really helps me out, and I'll talk to you very soon. Bye!